everyone, this is HoltKezed here. Welcome back to my channel, and I don't want to brag. I don't want to toot my own horn. I don't want to hype myself up more than I probably should be allowed to in the state of California, but I have arrived, and I have saved StarCraft. Now, I say that totally unironically, of course. If I had the editing power to put a halo above my head, I totally would. But I'm actually super excited for you guys to basically experience the map that myself and Zetal have made. Did it actually save StarCraft? No. Is it the most balanced map in the world? No. However, I honestly enjoy playing this map that we made more than playing standard StarCraft 2 on ladder. I love it so much. It is called Brood War 2 Husky Edition. It is on all 3 servers now. So if you're a super tryhard playing on the Korean server, you can even play it there. It is super fun. Chat is joining us. I don't know what they're saying because I cannot multitask that much. So chat, be super cool. Because this is actually, I'm recording this video live for the stream and also for the old YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and switch into the game. We are going to multitask right here. So if you guys would like to play Brood War 2, I'm going to show you how really quick, and I'm going to talk a lot about it. Please stay tuned and watch. I'm super curious to get your guys' feedback and thoughts and all of that. I've been posting a ton of updates on the Discord server. So if you haven't joined that, it's just discord.gg/HuskyStarcraft. Link down below. You should go join the Discord server. If you're watching on stream right now, go join the Discord server. But I've been doing a ton of updates there. And my good friend Zetal, who is the one that made Imba League, he also made Brood War 2, and he's put like hundreds of hours into this. And I'm so thankful to him for taking the time. He's got a whole life, you know, as people do, but he still found the time to do this for you guys. Came out of retirement, you know, he thought that he had retired from the force, but he is back. And anyways, it's called Brood War 2. So if you go to the arcade on any server, it is on your server, it is on the Americas, and it is on the Korean server, and you just type in, I think you can literally just type in Husky, because he put Husky in the name, which makes it easy to find. So right here, Brood War 2 Husky Edition, and then the man Avex loaned us his Big Game Hunters map and made a few tweaks to it to make it better. But it is right here, and you can create lobby, and you can either do Big Game Hunters 4v4, which is what I love to do, because I mean that's classic Brood War. Then that's how you would do it, or you can do it as an extension mod, which I actually didn't know that these things existed. Because I'm stupid, as you guys have quickly learned. But basically, if you go to any melee map, it can literally be any melee map. I usually use the Blizzard ones just because they're, you know, they're kind of finalized. If you do create with mod, and then up here in the top right side, if you search for, can you just do Husky? Yeah, so that'll pop up. So you search Husky, Brood War 2 Husky Edition right there, and you can create the mod into any melee map, which is super, super cool. Now, this video is going to be a little lengthy. I hope you're along for the ride. I'm super excited about this. This is a video I've wanted to make for like 10 years, and I never could figure out exactly how I wanted to put it together as far as the map is concerned. But I woke up one day and I was like, Zetal, you have to come out of retirement, and we have to make this map. So I'm so excited. So if I go to arcade, Zetal was also very nice enough to create a map for me that already has all the new units added onto it, so I can basically just jump right in and kind of talk about it. So while this is getting underway, what is Brood War 2? Well, if you've been watching my streams, you kind of understand that I essentially had a dream that I always wanted StarCraft 2 to feel more like Brood War. Now, what I mean by that is still having the playability of StarCraft 2, like selecting all the units, multiple building selection, all the great things that StarCraft 2 added, but having the combat feel more like Brood War, having how the units behave feel more like Brood War, having how the units interact feel more like Brood War. So I could literally talk about this for 10 hours because I've wanted to do this for 100 years, but I'm going to try and condense this as much as I can. I have a feeling, knowing me, this is going to go very, very long. But there they are. Okay, so this test map, Zetal made it for me, like I was saying. He basically just put every single unit that's in the Brood War 2 mod is on this map. So this is Protoss, obviously. We have Terran down here, and we have Zerg down here. Now, the idea for Brood War 2 is add in every single Brood War unit that is in Brood War is now in Brood War 2, getting rid of some of the units that I hate in StarCraft 2. And these are units that are frequently talked about. They're frequently discussed. People love them because they're good. People hate them because they're too good. People love them because they make the game faster paced. People hate them because you lose entire armies to them if you're not looking. So basically in StarCraft 2, I feel like every time they added a new unit, it was never like a core unit. Maybe I shouldn't say never. Of course, there is some units in there that are core, but a lot of them were like the Adept, the Reaper, the Oracle. Like, these aren't core units. They're units that are based around harassment and based around trying to make the game faster pace, which it's StarCraft. It's already the most fast-paced RTS in existence. It doesn't need to be more fast-paced. So we got rid of some units like the Reaper, like the Adept. We took away the Oracle's ability to attack, but we balanced it out in other ways. I know a lot of this is shocking. Don't worry, I don't actually work at Blizzard. I'm not rolling these updates out to traumatize anybody. But the idea was, and even like the Disruptor, it's like, it's new abilities added. You have to micro them perfectly. It's high APM. To me, it's low fun. And it's just not what StarCraft should be, in my opinion. So what I think StarCraft should be is less abilities, still some. Obviously, I'm not getting rid of Psystorm. I'm not getting rid of EMP. But getting rid of some like momentum shifting abilities, and instead making it more about how you control your units, which to me is what Brood War always was. Is yes, there's some spells, yes, there's some abilities, but it was usually about how you control the unit. So that's kind of the core of what Brood War 2 is. I don't know how else to say that in shorter form, but I'll kind of walk you through a few of the changes. I don't even know where to begin, because we made, I was looking at our document, it's over 30 pages on Google Docs of the changes we made to try and make the game feel more like Brood War, but play like StarCraft 2, if that makes sense. So this is exactly what like my dream would have been for StarCraft 2 if they would have just like taken all of my ideas and applied them when StarCraft 2 first came out. This is kind of what my dream for the game was. So, for example, I think ZVZ has always been one of the worst matchups in the history of StarCraft. It sucked in Brood War. It sucked in StarCraft 2 at all phases. It has just always sucked. A big part of that is that if you misclick once, all your drones are dead, all your Zerglings are dead, and you lose. Maybe Zerg players out there like playing that. I don't find it fun to play. I don't find it fun to watch. I think it is the worst matchup by far, personally. And Chad over here, if you agree or disagree, you can let me know. I will go back and read it later. I can't see it while this is happening. So one thing we did for Zerg was figure out how do we make ZVZ more likely to get to the end game. Now, if you still are not end game, but like even mid game. Now, what we did is we added an ability, which unfortunately my camera is a little bit in the way. So hold on, we're gonna oh no, hold on. Let me move me here. Oh geez, we're okay, chat. Be nice. You're on my face now. No, wait, hold on. This is a great budget. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, on every hatchery, we added something called neural exclusivity. The Zerg hive mind is exerting its control over the nearby area, reducing the movement speed of enemy Zerg units. Now, why do we do this? Well, I will tell you after I move my face back over here. Although this is actually going to be really annoying, I realize, because everything we added is in the bottom right side. Hold on, maybe I can... we're doing this in real time. What if we flip horizontal? Oh, now we're down here. We don't need no mini map. We don't need... Okay, this is way better. This is way better. Okay, so... Am I still in frame? I feel like I am. Okay, so... Kind of like how Protoss, they made it so the Nexus has like a big ring around it and it does certain stuff with, you know, the shield batteries or whatever within that range. We did this to where it only affects Zerg units. So it removes the speed buff that enemy Zerg units get on creep. So if you're battling in the middle of the map and two Banelings make it into your base, yes, they can still kill your workers, but you actually have a chance of getting those drones away and defending. Now, if you're losing and they're overwhelming your forces, you're still going to lose, because a Zerg army that's overwhelming you, that's moving just slightly slower, is not going to make a big difference. So for any Zerg ground units, Zerglings, roaches, all that stuff, if they get inside your base, your drones have a much higher chance of surviving. So again, I could talk about all this stuff forever. And actually, I'll maybe talk about it in the comments down below. So if you want to leave a comment, I can kind of discuss a lot of the thought processes. But that was just one of them where I thought ZVZ sucked. How do you balance ZVZ where it doesn't affect any other matchup? That was what we came up with. I think it's a genius idea. I had a lot of the fans play Zerg versus Zerg, and I loved what I was seeing, where like games that would have normally ended, it actually gives the defenders advantage that StarCraft should be known for. I think they basically got rid of defender's advantage in a lot of ways in StarCraft 2, like no high ground advantage, blah, blah, because you used to have a chance to miss to units on the high ground. And it's giving Zerg the defender's advantage they never had, because the Queen is not going to stop a bunch of Banelings from blowing up all your drones. So anyways, that's one big change we did. Also, probes, SCVs, and drones, they do more damage and they attack much faster. Now, honestly, this may be a little bit broken right now, but again, it like helps prevent cannon rushes. It helps prevent a lot of stuff, and it gives you more tools for survivability in the early game. So let's start with Terran, because this one I think is one of my favorite races right now. And where to even begin? I'm just going to go through the units and talk about what we got rid of. So we got rid of the Reaper, because the Reaper is basically a harassment unit that you see in early game with early pushes, early harassment, and then you never hear from him again. To me, that is terrible, 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 terrible damage. That is terrible unit design, where they're literally just making a unit that his only goal is to harass, and his only goal is essentially to force your opponent to have to defend against it, which narrows the different builds that you can do in a game. And that always drove me crazy, where it's like, I have to get units to defend against an Adept. I have to get units to defend against a Reaper. I have to get units to defend against an early Oracle. I think that's stupid. Like, you should be able to have many build options in the beginning, as opposed to like, oh, well, he got a Reaper. Oh, well, he's getting the thing that defends against the Reaper. Oh, he got lucky. Now he wins because the Reaper... it drives me crazy. It literally drives me crazy. So we got rid of the Reaper. He's gone. And now we are going to basically just go through these units really quick. So I always thought the Cyclone was a terribly designed unit. His attack animation's dumb. His role, they've like literally have reworked him like 10 times, and I never really liked that at all. So we got rid of him, and we replaced him with the Diamondback. And it's so funny because since we have done this, the Balance Council or whatever is looking at the Cyclone on ways to change him. But honestly, I think the Diamondback is where it's at. So the Diamondback is a campaign unit. We balanced him, of course, because the campaign version was absurdly broken. But he has replaced the Cyclone. He's way cooler. He's like super edgelord down here. He says all this emo stuff. I love it. His car has a little like headlights on it, which is super cool. I think it adds character and dimension to the game. He can like run around and like light up stuff with his lights, which I know is super important for me to talk about. But he can scoot and shoot just like the Cyclone can. And there is an upgrade for him to do splash damage, just like a Mutalisk. It's super cool. I love that he's in the game. Good old Thor. We didn't really make any changes to him as far as I can remember. He can still do his different little things. He's the Thor, man. He's been pretty solid since the game came out. Love him. Goliath is indeed online. Oh, one thing I do want to mention as well is Zetal took basically 2.5 years worth of time in adding all of the Brood War sound effects. So you won't be able to hear him the best on this video, but all the Brood War sound effects are in the game, which just adds so much ambiance, and it makes it so much more fun to play. I'm sorry, but the Brood War sound effects are vastly superior to StarCraft 2. So we got the Goliath. Right now, he does extra damage versus massive, just because battle cruisers are really good right now. As many of you know, carriers are always good. So he does extra damage to massive. Good old Goliath is back. The Vulture. Oh, I love this sassy man. So we put him in. He can get 3 Spider Mines once you upgrade them. The Campaign Vulture could like recharge his Spider Mines, but we wanted to stick to Brood War, so you only get 3. And even the Spider Mines in the campaign, they can shoot the Spider Mines like this far away from the Vulture. But we made it so it's melee range, just like it was in Brood War. So planting the mines, you know, he'll just drive over and then plant a mine, which is super cool. And he can basically... Zetal has been tweaking the numbers around to make him like be able to attack very similar to how he does in Brood War. Of course, it's 2 completely different games. You can't make it exactly the same, but you can kite with them pretty well. Now, the Widow Mine. a very controversial unit. People either love or hate the Widowmine. I am on team absolutely hate the Widowmine. I think it's dumb that you can drop one Widowmine in someone's base. When they run the probes, it kills the entire probe line. Might be exciting for a game or two, but I think that it completely distracts from what StarCraft should be. And like in StarCraft 2, there's so many moments where it's like, well, and I lose. Whereas in Brood War, it's like, yes, there were those moments, but your units were usually spread apart. They had a slower time to kill. Like, it was very rarely like, oh, I misclicked once and my whole army's dead and now I lose. The Widowmine was a unit that did that. So the only change we made to the Widowmine, going to be very controversial, but I stand by it fully, is once it burrows, it cannot attack workers. So it can attack everything else just like it normally does. But I feel like mines attacking workers is not very Brood War-esque. And we have basically buffed workers across the board with their survivability to try and make that carry on. So, hey, people can be mad about it. I personally find it much more fun. Siege Tank, he's pretty much the same other than him getting the voice lines from Brood War. Hellion, basically the same. I mean, I didn't really need any reason to change the Hellion. I feel like people losing all their workers to Hellions, like, that doesn't happen as much as it used to. I feel like people are getting much better at defending it. Anyways, he didn't seem to be a very aggravating unit to play against. Marauder, he's our big boy. He's doing just fine. Firebat. So we add the Firebat in. And if you guys remember from the campaign, the Firebat is like a big beefy unit, just like the Marauder. It didn't sit right with me because he's not a big beefy unit in Brood War. So Zetal kind of shrunk him down. You can kind of tell he like squished him in a little bit. So his proportions are a little bit not what you would expect, but we made him feel much more like he does in Brood War. We're still working on the balance of his attack because I want him to be a good unit, but not a unit that you just mass and you can completely destroy everyone's army. So he's a very tough unit to balance correctly because he's either overpowered or worthless. So we're still tweaking that, but I love having our Firebat boy back. Good old Science Vessel. And we have made the Science Vessel. I'm trying to see, I'm like, is my face in the video? I think it is. So we have made the Science Vessel just like he is in Brood War. So that means that he does not get his super overpowered repairing of mech units, which I know is super fun in the campaign. It's super broken in multiplayer. And we wanted to feel like Brood War. We didn't want it to be like, oh, putting campaign units in StarCraft 2. That was not the goal. So does not repair mech units. Does start with good old defensive matrix, just like he does in Brood War, and got the Irradiate, which you cast on bio units, or, well, you can cast it on anything, but it only damages bio units, so you get that fun eraser play, where you irradiate your own Science Vessel, run them over the drones, all that fun stuff, and EMP has been moved to the Science Vessel, just like it was in Brood War, which means our Ghost, what's going on with him? Well, he does have the steady targeting, he does have Lockdown now, which, if you guys know, they kind of added this similar ability to the Raven, but we gave him the true lockdown that he deserves. You have to research his stuff, plus cloaking, plus nuke. So he basically is the same ghost that he was in Brood War. We're still figuring out the cost for him, because in StarCraft 2, ghosts are much more expensive. Like the ghost fills a completely different role in StarCraft 2 than it does in Brood War. So we're trying to figure out exactly where we want him to stand. So for now, he'll stand over here by the Science Vessel. Now, the medevac has been changed to the dropship. It can no longer heal, and it does have the booster ability, because I do feel like Ignite Afterburners is something that's necessary in StarCraft 2. There's just so much anti-air that we decided to keep that, and it basically is a dropship, and that's what a dropship should do, is drop stuff. Now, since we got rid of the heal from the medevac, which I always thought medevac was such a weird unit, I feel like it would have been so much more fun to watch if there was medics instead of medevacs. Just my personal opinion. Obviously, I'm not a Terran player. I know the medevac is beloved, but we have added in the always cute, always adorable medic. We have made her healing range 1, just like it is in Brood War. However, we did add a medic range heal upgrade, which makes her heals attack basically the same distance that a medevac used to. So it's essentially a ground medevac. And something fun about the medic is if you have damaged units and they get loaded up in here, I believe that she can heal them while they are inside. Yeah, you saw him getting healed inside there. So that's just a fun little trick. You can fly around with a medic inside, and it will heal the units inside. SCV, you guys know what he is, but he does have a stronger attack, like I was talking about. Marine is the same. Of course, he's got his good old Brood War sounds. Absolutely love that. oh, it's just so good. I don't know how good you can hear him in the video, but just know it's so satisfying. Banshee is basically the same. Battlecruiser, the only major change we made to Battlecruiser is we gave him energy. Instead of being able to spam Yamato's and his tactical jump, we gave him energy so that he can get feedback, he can get EMP'd. Because honestly, they're gonna nerf the Battlecruiser, guys. You know, I don't shoot the messenger. Blizzard is definitely gonna nerf the Battlecruiser at some point. And tactical jump, the only nerf we made to that is it requires vision. To me, it didn't feel very StarCrafty to be able to teleport a Battlecruiser anywhere on the map at any second, and it's invulnerable and it's on a cooldown. Like, there's just something off about that. So we gave it a cooldown, and also, well, the cooldown's only 14 seconds, but it does cost energy as well. Makes the Battlecruiser, you know, you have to babysit it a little bit more. This unit I am so excited for. Oh, we also got rid of the Liberator because we added in the, well, I say Valkyrie. Artosis says Valkyrie. So however you want to say it at home is totally fine. But this is the only skin in the game that they have for the Valkyrie. So Zetal made it much bigger because in the game it was literally only like this big. It was so funny. And does splash damage to light air units as it should. It's super cool. Like, the attack animation is awesome. Oh, only shot one there. But basically it just launches all the missiles. It's super, super cool. And we gave it the Liberator portrait because we got rid of the Liberator. Here's the good old Wraith. Which, if you guys remember the Wraith, pretty fast unit-ish. I might need to make him a little bit faster, honestly. He feels a little sluggish. But he sucks at ground attack, but does lots of damage versus massive. If you research cloaking, it gives it to both the Wraith and the Banshee. Then the Viking, he does versus armored, he does extra damage, so he has a little bit longer range, but we didn't change him at all. And as far as upgrades, the only new one here is the medic heal range. And then we have Spider Mines, Vulture Speed. This is the one that is splash damage for the Diamondback. This one is Goliath Missile Range upgrade, just like Brood War. You guys get the idea. So that is Terran. Here's all the upgrades for the Science Vessel and the Ghost. We put it on the Ghost Academy because Science Facility doesn't exist in StarCraft 2. So that gives you the idea of what we're doing. Now for Protoss and Zerg, I'm going to go much quicker through it because it is a lot of talking. But you basically saw the idea, which is take every Brood War unit, give it all the upgrades from Brood War, or at least the majority of them if they're easy to program in, and make it more about how you're using the units as opposed to did you hit a big disruptor shot or whatever. So for the Protoss, we have the Arbiter, one of the most classic units. So it cloaks everything underneath it. If it is a unit in Brood War, it didn't cloak buildings, so that's why this only cloaks units. And that's the radius of that. It does get Stasis Field, which is super good, but you have to research it. It takes a Fleet Beacon to even get an Arbiter. And I think you need a Templar Archives as well to actually get that. So these are very difficult to get, but it's such a good unit, and it is the unit that has recall. So you fly it in and recall units to it. The Oracle, I actually really like how we balance this unit. Obviously, I don't know if it ends up working out or not, but it can no longer attack. However, it can do Photon Overcharge on your pylons, which I think brings in a lot of really fun play with like forward pylons, harassment. It like is a really interesting interaction. You can use it for defense. It's an ability that obviously the Oracle doesn't have in current StarCraft 2. And also the Stasis Ward now lasts forever, which is something I'm really, really excited about, where it makes it where you can start locking off and like defending locations with the Stasis Ward, forces your opponent to have to get more detection, and it definitely makes up, I think, for not being able to attack. Where the Oracle, it's like, yeah, it kind of has this role here and there in StarCraft 2, but I think this makes it a unit that has much more versatility, much more fun, and it fills multiple roles now. Tempest, we're trying to figure out what to do with the Tempest. I never really liked Tempest as a unit. I think it's a weird design. I get why they added the Tempest into the game, but I'm kind of hoping that we have fixed a lot of the problems that the Tempest was created to fix. So I'm open to suggestions on what we should do with the Tempest. Don't want it to be overpowered. I still want it to feel like a Tempest, but I just don't like the role that it currently plays. Colossus, same old, same old. Void Ray, we added it back to where it charges up to do additional damage. I always like that functionality because it's just one less hotkey you have to hit. So again, it's like balance-wise, we'll see where it kind of lands. But overall, we are trying to get rid of as many activated abilities as possible. So the Void Ray does more damage as it attacks a single target. Good old Corsair, man. Love the Corsair. Gets good old Disruption Web. Nothing can do anything underneath it as far as attacking or using abilities or whatever. It does lots of damage. Splash to light air. Has a very fast attack speed, so if your mutas are clumped up, you had better watch out. Maybe Tempest should be siege before they attack like aerial siege tanks. That would be cool. I don't know if sorry, I did read chat a little bit. I don't know if there's a way to add in like a cool animation for that. It'd be a little tricky, I think. I'm not sure. The Phoenix, he pretty much stayed the same. And yeah, the Phoenix and the Corsair do fill a very similar role. However, I figure, you know, Corsair is going to be much better against mutas, and then that allows the Phoenix to play a role of like mostly focusing on Graviton Beam, a little bit of harassment with the shot. Yes, there is some overlap, but honestly, I'm okay with units overlapping. I don't think that that ruins a game by any means. Our Probe, he's the same, just better attack. Sentry, the only thing about the Sentry is he actually got a little bit of a nerf, which I know the Sentry doesn't need a nerf, but we got rid of Hallucinate. And I'm trying to figure out what role the Sentry is going to play in the future, but I didn't want to make him feel like a whole new unit just because I took something away. More on that a little bit later. Good old Zealot, he's pretty much the same. Stalker, he's the same. Then our boy, the Scout. Oh, I've always loved the Scout. Sucks at ground attack, but is very good versus... oh, wait, these actually need to be updated to do additional damage versus massive. But either way, the idea is that I want an air unit for each race that is good against like the capital ships. So this one's going to be doing extra damage versus massive. But it's the Scout. Things are in flux. Carrier, the only change we made to the Carrier is all the Interceptors launch at once, which is really good. Because in Brood War, that's how it worked. All the Interceptors launched at the exact same time. And so that's partially why we're adding units that are good against capital ships, because the Carrier is so good now, especially when you have a ton of them. Like, they all launch instantly. It's kind of crazy, which I love, though. It makes it feel much more Brood War. The Immortal, we brought back the Hardened Shield. I always thought Hardened Shield was, like, the perfect Immortal ability. It just felt fun. It felt unique. It made it feel like it could have a role throughout the entire game. So I just liked Hardened Shields more. It feels more StarCraft to me. So we went back to that. Yeah, and then Dragoon. Oh boy, I love the Dragoon. So the Dragoon we made do additional damage versus mechanical, because if you think back to Brood War, like, what was the Dragoon good at? It was always in PvT, is what I think of when I think of the Dragoon. And it would always be great if you got it into a really good position. Like if you had a great recall, or you caught siege tanks when they weren't in siege mode, or like vultures tried to, like, I don't know, do you like trap some vultures, like they're just going to crush that. And all those units are mechanical. So I wanted the Dragoon to feel like it does in Brood War and not just outright crush Zerg. So I didn't want to do it plus damage to light, because that doesn't feel very Dragoon-y to me, and it'd be very unfair against Zerg. So he does additional damage, and he kind of moves. I think we have a good movement speed where he moves just slow enough that it feels clunky, because that's like classic Brood War Dragoon. And also they start to bunch up, and like the ones behind can't attack, and they're like kind of stupid, and that's exactly what you want from a Dragoon. So we did give it the Dragoon range upgrade, which you can get at the Cybernetics Core, just like in Brood War. Then we have the Reaver. Oh, the beloved Reaver. We made him nice and slow, and Zetal took hours of his life to make the Reaver shot just as stupid as it is in Brood War. So you can't really get a feel for it here. You have to see it in action. But the Reaver shots are just as dumb as you would hope, but devastatingly effective if you land those shots. There are upgrades for the Reaver, just like in Brood War. So he's going to slowly come over there. And let's see. Archon is pretty much the same. Dark Templar, he can get his blink just like they can in StarCraft 2 right now. But if you get two of them, you can merge them into the good old Dark Archon. Same thing with High Templar. They can morph into the Archon, of course, the regular Archon. But the difference with High Templar is we did give them attack, because I love that they finally added that in StarCraft 2. I think that's kind of cool. But they have the old school hallucination now. So hallucination got taken from Sentry and put on the High Templar, but it works like it does in Brood War. So you hit hallucination, and then you click on a unit that you want to hallucinate. So if you want to hallucinate Dragoons, there they are. If you want to hallucinate, I mean, literally anything, Warp Prisms, there they are. Obviously, they can't use their abilities, but that is exactly how it works in Brood War, where you basically hallucinate specific units, which is super cool, and I love that, and it's just kind of classic Brood War. So that is exactly how Hallucinate works now. The Dark Archon, he now has feedback, which the High Templar no longer has, because in Brood War, the Dark Archon had feedback. You can research Maelstrom, and Mind Control, which I think we balanced it pretty well. I was telling the stream how we balanced that out. But again, the upgrades are mostly what you would get in Brood War. So you got Maelstrom here, Mind Control. Then over here you have the Scarabs dealing more damage, and also Reavers can hold more, and all that. So that is Protoss for you. There's a bunch of upgrades here on the Fleet Beacon, the same upgrades that you can get in Brood War. Now Zerg, oh boy, how long have I been talking? This has been going nonstop, it feels like. So I'm going to keep going though. So we added a new unit called the Brutalisk, because I felt like Roach Hydra, it just feels bland, you know? It's like Roach Hydra. It's units that shoot. So this one, he actually has a pretty far attack range. He moves fairly slow. You can see how slow he is off creep, but he's kind of like a siege unit, kind of. Like, look how far his attack is here. You'll see it. It outranges Roach and Hydra, and he also does very little damage up front. So you can see he only does 8 damage with a very slow attack speed, but he applies Volatile Acid, which is a debuff that, or it's like a damage over time debuff, and it stacks. And if you have a bunch of Brutalists, they actually can snipe like tier 3 units pretty crazily. But they're not great versus like Zerglings and stuff that is smaller, because they don't do a lot of upfront damage. So he adds like a stacking acid debuff that, I mean, you saw 2 shots how much damage it did here to the Swarm Host, which we'll talk about in a second. The Mutalisk, I don't think we changed him, other than he can now morph into a Devourer or a Guardian, just like in Brood War, which I'm very excited about. So these guys can kind of go over here. Baneling, we didn't really change. He can waddle over there. Zerglings, we didn't really change. Hydralisk, we're trying to decide if we want to merge the Hydra speed and Hydra range upgrade, but other than that, he's the same. Drone, basically the same. I mean, it's a drone, but he can attack more. Roach is the same. Ravager, I do want to change Corrosive Bile. I'm not the biggest fan of this ability. I think it's way too short of a cooldown. I think it requires way too much micro. So for the Ravager, I'm trying to find a fun role for him. Maybe extra damage versus armored, or maybe, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. But for now, the Ravager is basically the same. Lurker is the same as well. Ultralisk, I think he made it where it can burrow. He made a small change to the Ultra, and I think he also made it where it can attack while moving. I have to double check with Zetal if he actually added that, which is a small change. But right now, technically, the Ultralisk has to stop to attack, but no longer. No longer. So we're trying to find little buffs for the Ultralisk, just because, look at him just stepping over all those units. So cute. Anyways, so there's that. The Corruptor may actually be broken, but we'll see. I changed it from plus damage to massive to plus damage versus armored, because the tier 3 sky units are way too good, and Zerg very rarely has early game anti-air. I've always felt like that's unfair. So the Corruptor is super good right now. He does additional damage versus armored, but he also cannot turn into the Broodlord. The Broodlord doesn't exist anymore because we have the Guardian. So that's kind of like a little bit of a nerf, I guess, in a way, but he's pretty good versus armored units now. Let's see. The Viper, I think we pretty much kept the same. We just yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so here we go for the new and fun units. So we had the Devourer, which is a classic Brood War unit that was almost never used because the way he functions is kind of weird. But we do have the Devourer in the game now. He's this big, beefy beetle man. And basically his attack, most people, I realized in Brood War, didn't actually understand what the attack of the Devourer did, and I honestly still continuously forget. But basically, it does a splash debuff. The damage only attacks only does damage to one target, but the debuff splashes, and it reduces their armor by 1 and attack speed by 10% per stack, up to 9 times. Units that are coated in acid are detected when cloaked. So basically, they take more damage the more stacks there are, and they attack slower the more stacks there are. But they don't do a lot of damage because it's a 2.5 attack speed, and it's only doing 15 damage. 25 versus massive, but with the 2.5 attack speed, it's still very, very slow. So you have to double that debuff with like other anti-air. The Overseer we completely changed because Overlords... Oh, did he give me an Overlord? Anyways, Overlords have detection now, and they have all of the upgrades like they did in Brood War. So the same upgrades, they work the exact same way as they do in Brood War. So that kind of left the Overseer in a weird spot because you don't need him for detection, and you don't need him for speed because you can upgrade all your Overlords. So we made him move kind of slow. Look at him, he's moving kind of slow, but he fills an Overseer role now. Because I always felt like the term Overseer didn't really fit the role. He's not overseeing anything. He's just scouting and he's pooping out these little things. He's not really overseeing anything. So basically what he does is he has this passive buff around him. You can kind of see the circle around him, which basically gives units, Zerg units underneath, a passive shield. See it right here? I want to make sure you can see it on the screen. Yeah, you can. Where it slowly goes up to 15 HP. So any unit underneath the Overseer, they're getting a boost to their HP. And it's temporary. So once this moves away, then it starts to fade. At least it should. Yeah, so then it starts to fade down. And it basically is overseeing your army. And it basically makes your army stronger. Is it super balanced? We're still playing around with it to try it out. But basically, it's a unit that should be floating around with your army. The Overlord speed does make him move faster as well, but he starts out fairly slow in the beginning. You could use him to scout because he is a little bit faster than an Overlord, but you'll have your slower lords to scout with, just like in StarCraft right now. And then the Swarm Host we completely changed because another big part of the changes that I wanted to make for Brood War 2 is getting rid of as many free units as you can. So I always thought like Brood Lords were so weird, Infestant Terrans were so weird. Oh, excuse me, Swarm Hosts were so weird. It's just so much free stuff. And I feel like in Heart of the Swarm, it just led to like snooze fests of games. There's nothing less fun than losing to free units. It's not fun to play against. I think it's lame all around. So for the most part, we got rid of all free units that make big changes in the game. So where does that leave the Swarm Host? Well, basically we made him so he's a melee unit, if you can believe it. I know this is a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. He is a melee unit, and when the Swarm Host dies, it spawns little roachlings that only last for a couple seconds, so it's not going against the free units because you're not just sending wave after wave. It spawns little roachlings only for a few seconds, and it also buffs all the Zerg units around the dying Swarm Host, so it kind of makes them go into a frenzy. And so we called it Fungal Invigoration. When this unit dies, it explodes, creating 4 temporary roachlings and providing all nearby allies with a boost to movement speed and attack speed. To me, that feels very Zergy. Why isn't there a buff that makes them attack in a frenzy? So you'll see he's kind of a melee unit, but he's not really for the actual melee damage. Although he is kind of eating this roach. I love that there's also a melee attack animation. But basically, when you kill him, he sends everyone into a frenzy, which I'm assuming this will work, even if I'm the one that kills it. And then there you go. It spawns those little roachlings. You can see how fast the Hydra shoots. It's basically a machine gun. And then these guys, they time out. So the idea is like it's a big tempo shift. So it's like if you send in your whole army and like they're the first ones to die, you get that tempo shift where the enemy is like, oh God. Because normally like I think of like Protoss attacking Zerg, and it's kind of like the Zerg's the one that kind of has to run away if the Protoss is in a good position with like Colossi and Disruptors and Reavers and all that stuff. But this makes it where it can be a big tempo shift where it kind of potentially resets the battle really quickly. And it's only for a few seconds, but it's a very interesting dynamic and fun unit, I think. We cannot forget about the good old Defiler. I did leave him quite large because in Brood War, the Defiler is a very vulnerable unit. And with the better pathing, I just felt like this is the default Defiler size that they give it when you put it in the game. So for now, I did leave him as a big chonky boy because I wanted him to feel very similar to Brood War. But he does have the good old Dark Swarm. And I still need to test the functionality to make sure it's working, but it works just like it does in Brood War. Units underneath shouldn't be able to take damage. Yeah, see, he's not taking any damage. And then as soon as it clears up, he does. So it might be very good. We already reduced the radius once because the default when you put it in the game was like huge. But it should be a good ability. He gets Consume and Plague as well. And we added the Flying Queen, which in Brood War, it's called Queen. But guess what? There's already a Queen. So we called it the Matriarch, which Zetal came up with that. I thought was pretty clever. And it is, you also don't make it from larvae. You make it from the actual hatchery, which I also thought was super cool. So it still feels Brood War-y, but you might actually make it. He has Spawn Changeling, just because I think Spawn Changeling is such a funny ability, and we took it away from the Overseer, just gave it here. We have Infest Command Center, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Good old Parasite. I can't use any of my units, but yeah, it has Ensnare, Spawn Broodling, just has all the abilities that the Queen has in Brood War, which is awesome. The Guardian, which just a big fat flying crab that's just raw DPS. Look how fast this guy attacks. He doesn't care. He's lobbing volleyballs of death because he's a Guardian, and that is what he does. Scourge, super, super good. You know, goodbye, Scourge. But you got to remember, they have the smart damage, so you just fly him into a fleet of things, and if there's no anti-air, whoo, boy, you better say goodbye. We did change the Queens a little bit. We made Inject Larva function differently, where I'm trying to make it more noob friendly. And I didn't want to set to autocast because that seems broken and it would be finicky. And then like you'd go check on your Queens. You don't have any energy. You can't heal. Like we tried the autocast thing, but it just doesn't feel right. So we basically made it where it costs a little bit less energy. It only spawns 2 larvae, but the larvae pop after a very short amount of time. So basically the idea is that if you're a bad player, and you're like, oh God, I forgot to use my energy, you can actually get that larva at about the same pace you would have if you're a pro. And if you're super pro, you may be getting slightly less larva, but it's costing less energy, so you're able to use it quicker. So you'll see right here, like if you were to spam it, like how quickly these larvae start to pop off here. And so it's only one at a time, but it's every 2 seconds. So it's kind of like, you have to play around with it to really get a feel for it. But when I was playing, and I'm terrible at Zerg, Zerg is my worst race by far, I always felt like I had enough larvae to do what I wanted, because even if I wasn't macroing perfectly, I knew that if I went back, I could just spam it and then get a lot of larvae. Like, see how quickly it built up all that larva? And I think it's super cool. It might be a little bit busted because you can like spam it a trillion times, but we're trying to find a way to balance it out where you don't just lose because you forgot to inject larvae. So that's kind of the idea there. And I think the last thing is the Infest Command Center. So Zetal did add Infested Command Center, which is super cool. So I didn't necessarily want it to be exactly like Brood War, and we may still switch to this, but it was going to take a ton of work to get it this way. So instead, for now, we made it where it flies a little slow, because I swear they were so slow in Brood War, which they were. But if you damage a command center, I think we did it 33%. In Brood War is 50%, but that just seemed a little too easy in StarCraft 2. So we made it, I think it's 33%. I have to double check. But once you infest it, you can now make 3 different units at the infested command center. So one is infested civilian, one is infested marine, and one is the good old aberration. So this is the only way to get aberrations, is to infest the command center. You're only going to see it in TVZ. He basically runs around and punches stuff. It's super cool. Love the aberration. This one spawns 2 little infested civilians. They're basically terrible Zerglings, but you know, you're not supposed to win with your infested command center only. But it gives you another production structure to make units. And then the infested marine, I didn't want to do the infested Terran because there's banelings and it kind of fills that similar role. So it's basically an infested marine, just gives you another unit that can attack air. It's not that great. I think we made him cost 35 minerals, so it's not something that you're going to spam and win with, but he doesn't time out, and it gives you another anti-air, and it's just kind of a cool little thing to make out of your infested command center. So overall, guys, I didn't get to read chat throughout this, but please, if you have feedback, let me know down in the comments below. If you go back and watch a lot of my live streams, we've played a ton of games on Brood War 2. This is my dream of what StarCraft 2 could have been. Not saying that StarCraft 2 is bad in its current state, but there's just so many things that I wish StarCraft 2 would have done differently, just for my own personal preference as someone who grew up playing Brood War. So this was kind of my dream. Blizzard, if for April Fools you want to do for 1 week only a Brood War ladder, Brood War 2 ladder, steal all my ideas. I don't even care. I would love to see it. I know it's never going to happen, but man, can one man dream. So anyways, again, if you guys want to play it, I'll show you right now in case you skipped it in the beginning. It's called Brood War 2 Husky Edition. All you have to do is go to Custom, go to Arcade. Right here, you can search for Husky, and it is right here. If you do this one, it will play it on the Big Game Hunters map. Gives you a really, really sick Brood War vibe. I love it. Or if you go to Melee, you do Create with Mod down here, which I think you can see on the screen. It was down here, yeah. And then you can just search Husky like that. and then you can create a lobby. And then it will apply all those units and all those changes to that melee map, which is super fun. So if you guys want to check it out, feel free to play it. It's really fun versus AI, especially if you've set them to the harder AI. They don't build the new units, but you can, and you're still fighting like a pretty good AI when it's on that hardness setting. So I find it super fun. If you guys do check it out, please give it a rating. Zetal works so hard on this. I cannot thank him enough. I'll show you how to do the ratings just super, super quick. And then this video will be done. My goodness, how long was this video? It must have been an hour long. But this is the shortened version, and I will continue the discussion in the chat and on Discord. But if you go to the arcade, again, you type in Husky, it pops up. If you go here, which is the right click, and you do map info, and then you go to reviews, review game, then you submit a review. If you guys don't mind reviewing it, that'd be awesome. You have to play one game on it, that's it. But I've been having so much fun on my stream. So follow me on Twitch. If you don't, twitch.tv/Husky. Follow the Discord if you don't, discord.gg/HuskyStarcraft. Follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/Husky, all that. I've been having so much fun playing StarCraft, playing other games, and honestly, just kind of not caring about the algorithm and just having some fun. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to me ramble forever. Hopefully I put you to sleep or whatever. Big thanks to chat. And my goodness, that's why they call me the one-take wonder, or one-take Willie. I don't know. I thought I had something funny to say at the end of that, but I don't. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. And of course, I'll see you guys next time. And go play Brood War 2. It is awesome. I think that Blizzard should make it a ladder. And I'm going to name this video that I saved StarCraft 2 because I find it hilarious that somebody will get offended by it. All right. I'm actually leaving this time.